We are a coalition of businesses, government, and nonprofit entities that are on a mission to end the opioid crisis. We are partnering with the Drug-Free Clubs of America on a monthly basis to host these events. So if you have any questions or comments during today's conversation, feel free to post them on the chat below, or you can also ask something anonymously on the Contact Us button on drugfreeclubs.com. So I'm really excited for today's discussion because we have three special guests from two of our member organizations. First, we have Brooke Rausch, who is in recovery and is working as a peer support specialist at Maryhaven. And we also have Leah Hooks and Drianne Zimmerman, who both work at Adam H., the Adam H. Board of Franklin County. So thanks to all three of you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's get right into the conversation. Addiction, without a doubt, is one of the most stigmatized conditions in today's society. You know, we often blame people for their addictions instead of viewing addiction for what it really is, and that's a chronic disease. So I'm hoping to get some good perspective from you all. Now, Drianne, I know you're a clinician. Can you talk a little bit about how certain words and images can reinforce negative stereotypes or even be relapse triggers for people in recovery?
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing this opportunity with me and providing me an opportunity to share with the community. I definitely want to share that messages, words, images definitely have a significant impact on individuals and can contribute to relapse. You hit it right on the head when you said addiction is a disease, not a choice. And that's what we need to get out to the community. In my studies and working with individuals who are in recovery or seeking treatment, I've seen some individuals who initially, may have second guessed or been second guessing their desire to even seek treatment because of the stereotypes and the things that are conveyed in the community, things that are picked up by the community. And then I've had the perspective of working with individuals who have sought out treatment, but were still very concerned and apprehensive about how they would be treated or how they are portrayed because some of the words and images that are within our community. I want people to understand that recovery, it's an ongoing process. It has its own set of challenges in itself, and it's not just about quitting or just say no, or abstaining. It's about building a whole different life, a whole different environment. People in recovery sometimes have to change their environment, the people, the places, the things that they are around. And this same thing is true for words and images that are within the community. I use the analogy of sometimes I ask people that are not, that have not been or who are not in recovery, or who have not been around an individual who is in recovery, to imagine or think of a time when you were in a situation and you wanted to change something in your life. You wanted to shift away from something. And I use the analogy of sweets, like a chocolate cake. And you're like, I'm going to cut out those sweets in my life. But it seems like right when you make that commitment to do so, there's that chocolate cake that's on a commercial, or there's someone having a bake sale or selling cookies. And I don't want anyone to take away the message that I'm comparing recovery with sugar and that, but I want you to get that analogy that it can be hard for someone when something is constantly in your face, when you're seeing billboards, when you're seeing on social media, when you're seeing different news clips of people using substances. That can be attention grabbing for individuals, and their automatic response is different than someone who has not used before. And we can go into, how substance use can sometimes be glorified, made to look cool, to be popular in the community. And so we have to consider that words and images can definitely impact people in recovery, can lead to relapse, because it can cause an individual to want to reminisce about where they have been in their life, those so-called good times. And there's a lot that the community can do as far as words and images to help someone and support someone in recovery.
Thanks, Drian. And speaking of the media, Leah, I know you work in the communications department for Adam H. Can you talk a little bit about the role that media plays in reinforcing or reducing, hopefully, the stigma, and how can, you know, that industry do better moving forward?
Yeah, definitely. The images and words that we use in the media have an impact, and it's not always the impact that we intend. So we need to really be aware of the impact of what we're sharing. So the media shares stories of recovery and hope, but then some of the imagery that they use along with those stories doesn't convey that. Instead, it has this impact that can have kind of two negative impacts. For someone in recovery, it could be a relapse trigger, like Drian said. It could also, for someone who's not in recovery, reinforce those stereotypes of what addiction looks like. So we need to avoid those negative consequences by spreading this awareness like we're doing today and showing people what that can do for people living in recovery and their family members and just the general community's view of what it looks like to live with a substance use disorder. So I completely understand, working in communications, the desire of the media to grab someone's attention with those images, but it's not necessarily grabbing someone's attention in the right way. So something that to other people looks horrifying and really is attention grabbing because they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's happening. To someone in recovery, that can actually look enticing. Like Drian was saying, they're seeing that and looking at it from a completely different perspective. So those images of like dark alleys and metal spoons and needles that you see all the time in the media, they're harmful stereotypes and they're triggers. So someone who identifies with that can be tempted to use again, and someone who doesn't identify with that then is getting this image in their mind that that's what addiction looks like. And we want to show not only that we're supporting those in recovery, but also show that addiction doesn't always look like that. Addiction can happen to anyone, anywhere, and it can look very different depending on a person's situation. So we don't want to further that stereotype of like, that's what it looks like for everyone. And really the media sets the tone for how we talk about addiction, and they can help us to form those stereotypes or they can help to break them. So we're making an effort and working with the media to change that and help to break those stereotypes. And whether you work in communications or if you're just posting on your personal social media, just being aware of those images that you're sharing and the impact that they have will really make a difference. So instead of sharing those kind of dark, sad, explicit imagery, instead share these messages of hope and that recovery is possible.
Thanks, Leah. And Brooke, you provide a really important perspective as someone in recovery. Can you talk about how you've experienced triggering imagery and how have you seen it affect those that you work with?
Okay, so I've been sober for a little over 5 years, and I've been working with Mary Haven for about a year now. So I have experienced it with social media and everywhere, advertisement. I feel like, you know, alcohol is the one that gets me because it, you know, it's acceptable. Everybody accepts alcohol. It's all over the billboards. It's like people idolize it. You know, they make it out to be something that it really isn't. You know, it destroys families. It destroys lives. But just simply scrolling through social media today, on Facebook, for example, when you scroll through, I wrote down so many different things on this piece of paper, but it's like, just exactly like Leah said, if you see a spoon, you know, I see it every day because half of my, you know, friends list is all in recovery or people that are associated with it, parents who have lost kids to it and all that. Spoons and needles. I see those every single day. Like, it's not only is it like just like, you know, a representation of what we, you know, what it is, it does trigger us, you know. I have clients that when we're watching a movie in Maryhaven, if something happens that like a scene comes on when they're using, they have to get up and leave. And some of them even decide they don't want to be there. Like it can be super simple. The thing that's going around right now is the whole Narcan thing. So every time they post something like that, they want to like have like pictures of people like passed out on the ground, like laying there with like something wrapped around their arm and a spoon and a needle laying next to them. And that's triggering to everybody. That's triggering to the parents or family members who have lost a child. You know, that brings back grief. That's triggering to us as the addict because it can take us back instantly, like in the snap of a finger. One little picture, one word, one anything can take us right back to where we are, no matter how long we've been sober for. I feel like the wordage is what gets me personally. Junkies, all the time I see, let them die. Why do they get free Narcan? This and, you know, all of this stuff. And it's not okay. It's hurtful. They say words don't hurt you, but they do. They hurt worse than, I mean, wounds heal. Say you get cut, you fall down, you scrape your knee, that heals quickly. The things that people say about us addicts and alcoholics is, it hurts, you know, it makes us feel like we're like the scum, you know, like that no matter what we do, we're never going to be good enough because people like to point the fingers, you know, and it's really not the case because some of the best people I've ever met are in recovery. And, you know, we were all a child one day. We were all somebody's child. We were all little. We all probably played sports. We did good things. And, you know, one bad choice led us down the wrong path. But, you know, it is a disease of the brain. If you line 10 people up and you let every single one of them try alcohol or even just marijuana, you know, the ones that are addicts and alcoholics are going to want to do it again. And the other ones aren't. Like it triggers something in the brain. You know, when we were sitting in school growing up, we didn't like raise our hand and say, hey, I want to grow up to be an addict. You know, we didn't. So the images are just they're traumatizing. They're traumatizing to me personally, and they make me want to like shut off social media. I do it often. I go through and I'm like, I can't take this anymore. I feel this big because people are so hateful. You know, and I'll just try to remember that, you know, just because people think things about us does not mean that we're really bad people. It just means that they're kind of uneducated. That's it.
Thanks, Brooke. And to your point, you know, it can inhibit people from going to seek healthcare for their addictions. And so, Drian, as a clinician, is that something you've seen? I mean, how does that stigma impact the quality of healthcare that people receive?
I want to speak to that. The quality of the healthcare is present. We have a lot of providers in our network and outside of our network that provide extensive levels of care to help individuals across their continuum to meet their needs. But I think that, and what I've seen is that stigma can significantly hold someone back. Again, going back to how are they going to be perceived? Can they be open when they actually go in and when they're desiring that treatment and they reach out, how are they going to, that can be in the back of their brain of how they're going to be perceived by providers and by individuals that they're going to meet with. You know, I want to say, and I think Brooke was hitting on this as well, is that the words that we use are very important. We have to be very mindful of the words that we're using as professionals, because the clinicians are a lot of times the first points of contact that an individual will see when they're seeking assistance for their substance use. And so as healthcare professionals, as clinicians, we need to take all the steps necessary to try to reduce the potential for stigma and negative bias. I would, also bring out that we need to use the person first language so that we can continue to focus on the integrity of the person by removing language that basically it equates people to their condition or has a negative connotation to it. So I would say, for example, use person with a substance use disorder, or someone is living with instead of suffering from, because when you use that person first language and put in, continue the integrity, that provides a more neutral tone, and that way people may be more receptive to seeking treatment or remaining in treatment.
It's really good insight. Thank you. I know we're kind of coming to the end of our session, but Brooke, I would just ask you, how can the community and those who know someone who's living with a substance use disorder, or if they're in recovery, how can we as a community better support those in their recovery journey?
Okay, so I really want to give a shout out to Adam H right now in Maryhaven, because 5 years ago, whenever I wanted to get sober, I didn't have anybody to go to, because you can't just walk up to somebody in the community and say, hey, I'm struggling right now. I need help. Will you take me to get help? And that's really the problem. And so we really have to rely on places like at the Adam H funds, because most of the people that are coming in to get help don't have medical insurance. So I feel like we just need to be, as a community, more aware of the people, places, and things that oh, sorry about that. That was a letter that my kid passed to me. Anyways, so I think that we could just be more accepting of things, even if it's just Narcan. Like, be nice, be kind, treat everybody openly. Don't use names that stigmatize people, because it really does hurt. We are humans just like everybody else. Nobody deserves to have to, I always say it like this in the groups that I run. If everybody in this world had to be labeled as the thing that has caused them the most problems in their lives, their deepest, darkest secret, their skeleton in their closet, would they want everybody to refer to them as whatever that may be? No, they wouldn't, and I believe that everybody struggles with something today. I mean, like you had, the wonderful woman down there had mentioned food. Everybody has something that they struggle with today. It is hard to reach out. It's very hard to reach out. And when we're ready, we're usually ready right now. And it's important that we as a community have open arms and can lead people and have resources such as, places and facilities, that can do it. And we need to stop sharing so much negative stories and share more positive stories, because I hardly ever see anything positive about recovery. It's always like the overdose rates. So just be more accepting that everybody has a problem.
That's so important. Thank you, Brooke. And thank you, Drianne and Leah, as well, for joining us today for this important discussion. For those of you listening, if you're not following the Opioid Education Alliance, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also connect with us at don'tliveindenial.org. We look forward to our next Facebook Live event next month. But again, if you have any questions, or whether anonymous or putting them in the chat, feel free to reach out and we'll be sure to get back to you. So thanks again, ladies, and we're signing off for now. See you next month.